Did you know that humanity knows more about the vastness of space than we do about our own oceans? It is estimated that a mere 5% of what the ocean conceals has actually been explored. Somehow, the mysteries within the deep are always elusive, silently terrifying, mirroring the depth and darkness of the abyss itself. During the Cold War, when the world was fixated on the arms race between the United States and the Soviet Union, military forces from both superpowers were stunned and terrified by the appearance of mysterious or bizarre submarines. They moved silently, stealthily, like ghosts beneath the waves. They made humanity feel truly helpless, constantly watched by something unseen. Every effort to pursue, attack, or approach them failed. Were these truly submarines, or an entity beyond human understanding? Are the stories of ghost ships and marine anomalies mere fabrications, or are they truly unexplained legends? Today, Dark Origin will join you in shedding light on this mystery in the first video of the series, Ghosts of the Deep. Episode 1, The Endless Hunt. In the 1960s, the world was shrouded in a gloomy atmosphere. The Soviet Union and the United States each held a pole, dominating global affairs. Less than 20 years after World War II, humanity stood on the precipice of a nuclear war that could claim billions of lives. In 1963, the U.S. Navy organized a large-scale exercise involving aircraft carriers in the area near the famous Bermuda Triangle. The purpose of this exercise was not much different from previous ones: to enhance the ability to search for and hunt down enemy submarines. But why a submarine hunting exercise? If you look at the global picture at that time, you will understand why the U.S. placed such emphasis on anti-submarine warfare. Everyone knows that the U.S. and the Soviet Union were the world's leading nuclear powers, holding thousands of nuclear weapons ready for combat at any moment. However, having nuclear weapons is one thing. How to use them to attack or retaliate is another. The range of missiles at that time was not sufficient for these two nations to strike each other from their own soil. Therefore, both were forced to choose other options. The first method was to deploy their nuclear weapons to an allied nation as close to the adversary as possible. The U.S. did this by deploying 15 PGM-19 Jupiter medium-range missiles in Turkey. These missiles were capable of carrying nuclear warheads and could easily strike Moscow and most of the Soviet Union's industrial and administrative centers. Similarly, the Soviet Union retaliated with Operation Anadir, transporting over 20 R-12 medium-range ballistic missiles across the ocean, with a range of about 2,000 kilometers, along with 6 R-14 missiles boasting double that range. Each missile could carry a thermonuclear warhead with enough yield to strike Washington, as well as most U.S. strategic air bases. The second method, more secretive, safer, and seemingly more effective, was to use submarines capable of deploying nuclear weapons close to enemy territory. Because of this, the ability to search for, hunt, and intercept submarines held immense strategic significance for both the Soviet Union and the U.S. at that time. Returning to the U.S. Navy exercise, just as the radar was switched on, the simulated target was identified. However, not long after, the screen displayed another signal. What on earth was happening? The plan was to hunt a simulated target, so why was there an additional unidentified object gliding through the area? Could it be a Soviet submarine? The answer is likely no, because the speed of this object was inconceivable for any submarine. Can you imagine? It moved at a speed of nearly 150 knots, equivalent to almost 280 kilometers per hour. Let alone a submarine, even a helicopter would struggle to reach that speed. It didn't stop there. The strange object astonished everyone with its speed of diving and resurfacing. In mere moments, it dove to a depth of over 6,000 meters and resurfaced just as quickly. To this day, only specialized equipment can reach such depths without being crushed by water pressure, not to mention that the diving process usually takes hours of complex technical maneuvering, not just a few minutes. The unidentified object remained very at ease, making no effort to evade the U.S. military pursuit. Perhaps it understood that human equipment could not touch it, so it simply played around. For 4 straight days, the aircraft carrier was shadowed without being able to do anything. The U.S. repeatedly accused the Soviet Union of sending submarines to violate the area, endangering national security, but provided no concrete evidence. The situation became so tense that a high-ranking official of the Soviet Navy had to speak up. As the head of the Soviet Navy fleet, I want to convey to the U.S. government that if you can catch and destroy that submarine, we would be very grateful. This confusion on the part of the Americans is understandable, as the Cold War was inherently a fierce race in defense technology. The appearance of the strange object was like a heavy punch that stunned the entire Western military world. Consequently, much top-secret information regarding the incident has been hidden for decades. In reality, 1963 was not the first time humanity encountered these ghosts of the deep. Since February 1960, in the Nuevo Gulf of Argentina, people had detected two extremely strange submarines. One lay motionless on the seabed, showing no signs of activity, while the other moved continuously beneath the surface. Basically, Argentina is a major nation in South America with clear sovereignty, so they were furious about this. Both Washington and Moscow were questioned about the appearance of the two strange submarines, but both denied the presence of their vessels. The U.S. swiftly dispatched a large aircraft carrier accompanied by a fleet to assist Argentina in identifying the two strange submarines infringing upon their territorial waters. What do you think they would do with these two intruders? The first step, undoubtedly, was to attempt communication. The U.S. and Argentine military tried to broadcast warning messages to the strange vessels, but the only response was silence. After numerous unsuccessful attempts, they agreed on a solution: annihilation. In just 10 days, the military rained down tons of depth charges and mines upon the area, along with hundreds of anti-ship rounds fired. Everyone believed the chance of survival for the two intruders was virtually zero. Yet, astonishingly, the moment the artillery opened fire, the submarines instantly vanished into the deep waters. The subsequent hunt and pursuit hit a dead end. With incredible speed, both concealed themselves within the vast Atlantic Ocean. The U.S. had made its move. What about the Soviet Union? Why didn't they send their own ships? Did they consider this a trivial event? Not at all. The Soviet Union did not view this as a nonsensical or trivial occurrence. They took it extremely seriously. The Soviet Ministry of Defense requested their secret intelligence agency operating in Argentina to provide the most complete and detailed information regarding the events that had just unfolded. Before the dust could settle, just a month later, another strange submarine was spotted gliding through the Caribbean Sea. And so it went. Ghost submarines began appearing continuously in other waters around the world, such as the Mediterranean, Australia, and New Zealand. The race shifting from space exploration to ocean exploration spurred Western media to propagate that these strange vessels worldwide were some secret Soviet project. This was not entirely without basis, as at that time, the nuclear submarines possessed by the Soviet Navy fleet could travel for months to anywhere in the ocean without hindrance. However, the crux of the matter is that no force ever managed to capture or destroy even a single detected submarine. In the summer of 1967, off the coast of the Atlantic, an Argentine warship was stalked for 15 minutes beneath the surface by a strange, glowing, cigar-shaped object about 30 meters long. It moved without generating a single sound, and witnesses saw no protruding parts on its hull. The light emitted by the object was a pale blue. Shortly after, it quickly dove deep, leaving behind only a faint trail of light. Could the Soviet Union have truly made such advanced strides in defense technology? While military officials were still reeling from the ghosts flickering in and out of existence in the open ocean, bad news kept pouring in. Western, and even Soviet, submarines began disappearing mysteriously. In just 1 year, 4 disappearances occurred. First was the Israeli submarine INS Dakar. This was a T-class submarine commissioned in 1943 that had served in the Royal Navy as HMS Totem before being purchased by Israel in 1965. After completing tests and upgrades, the Dakar was scheduled to arrive for a welcoming ceremony in Israel on January 29, 1968. The Dakar departed Gibraltar on January 15th, reported its position east of Crete on January 24th, and sent its final message just after midnight on January 25th. After determining the Dakar was missing, ships from the UK, Greece, Turkey, Lebanon, and Israel searched for days. Although complicated by regional tensions, no clues were found. The search officially ended on February 4th. However, it wasn't until 1981 that the 69 crew members were officially declared dead. In 1999, the wreckage was discovered between Crete and Cyprus at a depth of 2,987 meters. The cause of the Dakar's sinking has never been determined. Israel initially believed the Soviet Union might be responsible, but later ruled out hostile action. The reason being that the Dakar carried no torpedoes and the hull was largely intact, making an internal explosion unlikely. Theories suggest technical failure or human error caused the disaster, or that the submarine's snorkel broke after colliding with another vessel in a storm, flooding the interior. The second disappearance occurred on January 27, 1968. The French submarine Minerve encountered bad weather while returning to Toulon after a training operation in the Mediterranean. When it was 48 kilometers from the southern coast of France, the vessel contacted a French aircraft and announced it would dock in about an hour. However, the Minerve never arrived. A search was conducted with 20 ships and aircraft, including the aircraft carrier Clemenceau, but was suspended on February 2nd. Searches over the following years failed to locate the Minerve. It wasn't until 2019 that the vessel was discovered by the U.S. seabed mapping company Ocean Infinity. The Minerve lies 45 kilometers from Toulon at a depth of 2,377 meters. The hull was broken into 3 sections scattered over a 300-meter radius on the seabed. The sail was destroyed when the hull imploded under water pressure, but the letters Minerve and the number S647 were still visible. This was a crucial detail in identifying the ill-fated submarine. The French government decided not to salvage the vessel, meaning the cause of the disaster has never been resolved. 2 massive search and rescue operations in 1968 and 1969 yielded absolutely nothing. Yet the 2019 mission located the wreckage in just 18 days. Do you think this is mere coincidence? Or was it simply modern technology finally shedding light as sunken vessel lay? Naturally, the Soviet Union and the United States remain the central figures in these disappearances. The K-129 was a diesel-electric submarine commissioned by the Soviet Navy in 1960. It was one of the most advanced submarines in their Cold War arsenal. After completing 2 70-day combat patrols, the vessel, armed with 3 state-of-the-art nuclear ballistic missiles, was assigned its 3rd patrol, beginning February 24, 1968. However, on March 8, 1968, the submarine abruptly lost contact. The Soviet Navy sounded the alarm and launched a massive search. Commanders in Kamchatka realized the K-129 was missing by the 3rd week of March 1968. A large-scale search operation was deployed, disguised as a naval exercise. But this unusual activity caught the eye of U.S. intelligence, and the Department of Defense immediately moved to analyze the situation. The U.S. Sound Surveillance System, SOSUSA, facilities in the North Pacific were alerted and requested to review their data for anomalies occurring on March 8th, the day contact was lost. Acoustic data from 4 SOSUS sites identified a potential event, a location hundreds of miles away from where the Soviet Navy was searching. According to acoustic analysts from Naval Intelligence, the North Pacific SOSUS network recorded an anomalous acoustic signal on March 8, 1968. By March 11th, the network picked up other unusual sounds, culminating in a series of chilling noises resembling screams. By triangulating these signals, the U.S. military pinpointed the suspected crash site at 40 degrees north, 180 degrees east. Without the aid of SOSUS, the Soviet Navy could not determine the exact location of the disaster. They concentrated their search hundreds of nautical miles from where the K-129 actually sank. Can you believe it? The United States pulled the rug out from under the Soviets in this affair by successfully salvaging the K-129. However, the Americans only recovered a portion of the wreckage, and what they found, or the ultimate cause of the sinking, remains a mystery to this day. And finally, we cannot overlook the mysterious disappearance of the USS Scorpion, an event that turned a pride of the U.S. Navy into one of the bloodiest tragedies in American military history. On May 22, 1968, the Scorpion, following a patrol in the North Atlantic, vanished without a trace, along with 2 Mark 45 anti-submarine torpedoes and a nuclear reactor. This tragedy claimed the lives of all 99 men on board. The U.S. Navy and expert teams frantically launched search operations for their prized vessel immediately after the tragedy struck. On June 5th, after nearly 2 weeks of desperate searching, the Navy was forced to declare the USS Scorpion presumed lost. The cause of the disappearance remains unclarified to this day. In October of that same year, wreckage of the ill-fated submarine was found in the Atlantic at a depth of 3,000 meters, 740 kilometers southwest of the Azores, Portugal. Many theories have been proposed, including an internal torpedo explosion that doomed the Scorpion and its 99 crew members. However, these theories lack concrete evidence, leaving the Scorpion as one of the great unsolved mysteries of U.S. military history. The lack of a definitive answer has fueled conspiracy theories, including the claim that the Soviet Navy sank the Scorpion in retaliation for the salvage of the K-129. Conversely, some Soviet naval officials claim the K-129 sank due to a collision with the American submarine USS Swordfish, which was operating in the area at the time. Out in the Pacific, there were allegations that before vanishing or sinking deep into the seabed, ocean ghosts were seen circling 4 unnamed submarines. These ocean phantoms, ghost subs, or mysterious objects remain permanently unidentified. Throughout the 1970s, they continued to surface in various forms, sometimes as an ellipse reflecting blue light, other times as a long, diamond-shaped object shooting out of the water at incredible speeds. Later, similar reports became less frequent, and interest in these ocean ghosts waned. But then came a day when people were forced to exclaim once again, "This is insane!" In October 1969, in the Arabian Sea, a Soviet survey ship was conducting a routine mission. Then, one night in the middle of the month, the ship's commander was awakened by an unprecedented anomaly. A report from the bridge indicated a signal detecting something massive hovering about 20 meters below the surface. The crew rushed to the deck to observe. Everyone was astounded as the underwater object initially emitted 8 blades of light, forming a propeller shape over 200 meters long, rotating counterclockwise. To everyone's amazement, this phenomenon continued for 30 minutes without stopping or glitching. Afterward, the lights fragmented into small pieces and vanished. 2 years prior, in 1967, a similar incident unfolded in the Gulf of Thailand, witnessed by the crews of 7 Dutch cargo ships. They reported that within the center of the fan-shaped formation, there was a luminous area with a diameter of 25 to 30 meters. You might have heard of bioluminescent creatures or jellyfish capable of glowing. But how do you explain the massive size and the regular, mechanical rotation that these sailors observed? Centuries ago, ghost ships and similar bizarre maritime phenomena were already being recorded. We can find depictions of them in the logbooks of seasoned captains or in archives of ancient seafaring. To this day, the mysteries of the ocean remain something that transcends human limits and comprehension. Episode 2: Nightmare on the High Seas. Over 70 years ago, the world seemed to hold its breath over a horrifying tragedy, regarded as the most mysterious and macabre event in maritime history. The entire crew of a merchant vessel weighing thousands of tons died a gruesome death. Their faces clearly expressed sheer terror, with eyes wide open, mouths gaping, and bodies frozen stiff, as if they had witnessed something unspeakably dreadful before dying. Countless investigations and hundreds of horror-tinged theories have been painted by the public, yet no answer has been convincing enough to satisfy those curious about the case. Since then, the SS Ourang Medan has become famous as the most enigmatic ghost ship to this day. The story begins around 1947 to 1948. At that time, the Ourang Medan was a steam-powered cargo ship with a displacement of 5,000 tons, having been in operation for up to 40 years. The ship set sail for a routine voyage through the Strait of Malacca. The crew consisted of 23 men in total, including the captain and several Indonesian sailors. Around early afternoon, operators at listening posts in Malaysia and Indonesia, along with many other ships using the common frequency in the area, picked up a strange distress signal sent from the Ourang Medan. The content of the signal was terrifying enough to horrify anyone who read it. All officers, including the captain, are dead. They are lying in the chart room and on the bridge. The whole crew is probably dead. I am the only one left alive." It didn't stop there. After the distress signal ended, a series of confusing and chaotic Morse codes continued to be sent, but they held no meaning. In the final string of gibberish, the last intelligible sentence heard was, "I die." Then, everything ended in silence. What had happened? Did they encounter pirates? Why was the signal only sent when nearly everyone was already dead? Among the ships that picked up the signal from the Ourang Medan, the American vessel Silver Star, located in the Strait of Malacca, the area between Indonesia, Malaysia, and Singapore, was the first to intercept it. Based on that signal, they quickly pinpointed the location of the distressed Ourang Medan. When the Silver Star arrived the next day, the Ourang Medan was sitting strangely still. There was no steam rising from the engines, no cries for help. The crew tried to call out to get attention, but the only response was silence. After receiving no reply for some time, the captain of the Silver Star decided to send a rescue team aboard the SS Ourang Medan to look for survivors. But what they witnessed was truly a terrifying nightmare. As soon as they stepped onto the deck, the first thing that caught the rescue team's eyes were frozen corpses scattered everywhere, from the wheelhouse to the chart room. It was hard to imagine what could have killed dozens of burly, strong crew members like that. Their faces were twisted in fear, mouths wide open in silent screams, and eyes staring blankly as if petrified. Even the ship's dog died with its mouth open mid-growl. Venturing deeper inside, they found the captain dead, slumped over in the command bridge. His face wore the same look of horror as the sailors. There was one commonality among the bodies. Their heads were all turned away from the sun. As for the radio operator who sent the message, his fate was no better. Even in death, his finger was still resting on the telegraph key, likely the moment he sent that final notification that he was dying. Whatever had terrified the crew to death had vanished without leaving a single trace. All the cargo and equipment on the ship remained intact, including valuable items. This immediately ruled out the possibility of pirates, which many had previously suspected. So, the greatest mystery now remains. What caused the death of the entire crew? Their bodies were completely unharmed, bearing no signs of physical trauma. It was as if a supernatural force had unleashed its fury and extinguished these unfortunate lives. After witnessing the ghastly tragedy on board, the rescue team from the Silver Star decided to tow the Ourang Medan back to port. However, the journey back for this ship would be anything but peaceful. While towing the ship back to port, the rescue team was once again startled to discover thick, black smoke billowing from the lower hold. The outbreak of fire forced the crew of the Silver Star to cut the tow line and abandon the SS Ourang Medan. With the rescue team failing to extinguish the flames, the ship's fate was sealed. It caught fire, exploded, and sank forever into the deep ocean. The explosion was so violent that it lifted the vessel partially out of the water, dragging the tragic and mysterious fates within it down beneath the waves. In reality, reports and records regarding the incident contain discrepancies. Some accounts describe rough seas, while others claim it was a calm day with beautiful weather and completely normal conditions. Another detail regarding the first ship to approach the Ourang Medan also varies. Some documents state that the American vessel that first approached the ghost ship was the city of Baltimore, not the Silver Star. Regardless, the stories share a common crux. The entire crew of the Ourang Medan suffered a horrific and mysterious death. So what happened to this ill-fated ship? The first theory concerning the deaths of the crew suggests a cover-up of some crime. Based on the details, you can identify the objectives of the force attacking the ship as twofold. First, to wipe out the sailors, and second, to erase all remaining traces by ensuring the ship never returned. With a displacement of 5,000 tons, is it possible the Ourang Medan was tasked with transporting something of critical importance, and after the transaction, they were purged because they had outlived their usefulness? However, all speculation hits a massive wall. Can you believe it? The Ourang Medan was essentially a ghost ship before the tragedy even befell it. This is because no evidence could be found to verify the identity of the Ourang Medan. Maritime history documents indicate there are no registration records for such a ship. No one has ever claimed to know the ship or to have served on it. Similarly, the date and location of the incident are inconsistent. British historian Roy Bainton made significant efforts to hunt down information on the ship's voyage, but the result was a big fat zero. The Ourang Medan may very well have been a secret kept locked in some intelligence dossier that no one knows about. And this further solidifies the theory that it was sunk to conceal a crime. Some accounts place the ship near the Solomon Islands, while others say it happened in the Marshall Islands. Researchers have discovered that the first mention of the Ourang Medan sinking appeared in articles citing British naval officers in 1940, published in the British press during World War II. These articles describe an emergency call from the Ourang Medan seeking assistance from a doctor and a warship. However, in this narrative, the vessel that came to aid the Ourang Medan crew was a British merchant ship, not the American one mentioned earlier. They found the crew exhausted, and there was no dog. The only consistent information in this version, compared to later ones, is that the ship exploded and no evidence could be recovered. According to sources, the character who witnessed the story of the Ourang Medan becoming a mysterious rumor was a reporter named Silvio Scherli in Trieste, Italy. Initially, the story was embellished by others, primarily Scherli, to monetize the event. The next theory suggests that the Ourang Medan was used to transport a secret cargo of extremely dangerous nerve gas, a deadly surplus from the World War. A German maritime detective named Otto Mielke tried many times to access the crew list of the Silver Star, the ship that towed the Ourang Medan, but was met with a terrifying silence from the operating company. Why would they refuse to provide such basic information? Even identity papers and Lloyd's Register records no longer exist. There is no tangible evidence that this ship ever existed. Thus, the theory of a political conspiracy concealed by multiple nations became an explanation for the tragedy on the Ourang Medan. This theory is quite plausible if looking at the deaths of the crew members. We can immediately recognize symptoms like gaping mouths and rigor mortis, which are very similar to poisoning. Since no physical trauma was found, death by poisoning is the most feasible explanation. Do you remember the radio operator who sent the final signal, "I die"? This proves he was conscious of his own impending death. It must have been a gradual death. With dangerous toxins, even a very small amount is enough to end a person's life. In 1948, a Dutch-Indonesian newspaper named De Locomotief described the Ourang Medan setting sail from a Chinese port to Costa Rica to keep illicit cargo secret. This secret journey was revealed by the sole survivor of the ship. The survivor was a German man found by a missionary when he washed up on Taongi Atoll in the Marshall Islands. According to some reports, he survived because he ignored warnings and left the ship, eventually reaching safety. This German man eventually died from his injuries, but before passing, he revealed that the ship was carrying sulfuric acid. Due to improper handling, fumes escaping from the containers silently killed the crew and ultimately caused the ship to explode. The Italian missionary who discovered the survivor recounted these events to the reporter Silvio Scherli. However, this theory failed to convince many. After all, if it were a toxic gas leak, why was the rescue team that boarded the ship the next day completely unharmed? We have many more theories surrounding the incident, ranging from infrasound and aliens to demonic spirits or an oceanic curse. However, a theory is just a theory. It could have been an accident or a conspiracy. To this day, the tragedy of the Ourang Medan remains shrouded in a fog of mystery, and the story behind it will likely never be resolved. You might agree that it is incredibly mysterious and gruesome, but it is not the most famous ghost ship of the ocean. That title belongs to a vessel whose name has transcended the boundaries of maritime history, permeating pop culture through movies and legends for hundreds of years. That's right, I'm talking about the Flying Dutchman. The legend begins in 1641, when a Dutch ship sank mysteriously off the coast in a storm near the Cape of Good Hope. Captain Vanderdecken and his crew were returning the ship to Holland after a successful voyage to the Far East. Preoccupied with thoughts of proposing a stopover station at the Cape to the Dutch East India Company, he failed to notice the dark clouds filling the sky as the ship plunged straight into a ferocious storm. In the face of extreme danger, The sailors urged the captain to turn back, but Vanderdecken refused. Some said he was mad, others claimed he was drunk, but the captain ordered his crew to press on. He stood there smoking a pipe as massive waves crashed against the ship. Winds tore the sails, and water flooded the hull. When fear reached its limit, the crew mutinied. Without hesitation, Captain Vanderdecken killed the mutiny leader and threw his body overboard. The moment the body hit the water, a mysterious voice asked the captain if he wished to enter the bay that night. Vanderdecken replied, "I will sail around these waters until doomsday." The voice replied, "So be it. As the price for your actions, you shall sail the oceans for eternity with a crew of the dead, bringing death to those who sight your ghost ship, like never to dock or know peace. Gall shall be your drink, and red-hot iron your meat." At that moment, Captain Vanderdecken remained unflinching, continuing to steer the ship before the tragedy struck. The ship then vanished without a trace. Since then, legend has it that if you pass this cape and look to the eye of a storm, you might see the ghostly vessel and its captain. Later, Captain Vanderdecken earned the nickname the Flying Dutchman, and the legend spread worldwide. Many have witnessed this strange sight during storms. Specifically, amidst swirling black clouds, the ghostly ship suddenly appears, gliding over the water, luring other vessels onto hidden reefs before vanishing strangely. Rumors even say that if you look into a violent storm off the Cape of Good Hope, you will see the captain and his spectral crew. Some share that when the ghost ship appears, so does the white phantom of the captain, with terrifying red eyes, startling anyone who beholds him. There are also the screams of the crew, making it hard for witnesses to keep their composure. Regarding encounters, there are many records from the 19th and 20th centuries, but most lack specific times and locations. Among them, the most famous and credible account of the Flying Dutchman comes from the Prince of Wales, later King George V, aboard HMS Bacchante of the Royal Navy. While passing the Cape of Good Hope on July 11, 1881, the prince recounted, "At 4 a.m., the Flying Dutchman crossed our bows. A strange red light from the phantom ship made everything around it glow. In the midst of it were masts, spars, and sails. A group of sailors quickly approached the ship upon orders, but the closer they got, the further the ship drifted toward the horizon before vanishing without a trace. 13 people witnessed this phenomenon." Our final record of the Flying Dutchman is from 1942 in Cape Town, South Africa. Witnesses reported seeing the ship enter Table Bay and then suddenly disappear. The legend and questions surrounding the existence of the Flying Dutchman likely remain a mystery in the minds of many to this day. To explain the existence of this vessel, attempts have been made to find specific scientific justifications. Most prominent among them is the theory attributing its appearance to the Fata Morgana phenomenon. These images of flying ships are actually a rare and complex form of optical illusion, in which horizontal and vertical distortions, inversions, and changes in elevation are common occurrences. Studies suggest the phenomenon occurs on the water's surface, created by the superposition of air layers with different refractive indices. These superior mirages occur under weather conditions known as thermal inversion, where a layer of cold air lies close to the sea surface with warmer air sitting above it. Consequently, because the cold air is denser than the warm air, it bends light toward the eyes of an observer standing on the ground or the coast, altering the appearance of distant objects. This type of mirage can make distant ships appear as though they are floating, even though they remain firmly on the sea surface. This argument sounds very convincing and highly scientific, yet it hits a barrier within science itself. It is known that Fata Morgana is generally more common in polar regions or the high Arctic, though it is occasionally sighted in some European countries during winter. However, in a southern hemisphere region with such a distinct climate as the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa, a Fata Morgana seems virtually impossible. From ghost ships like the Flying Dutchman to the SS Ourang Medan, it is clear that the mysteries of the sea are just as famous and chilling as any modern urban legend. For those who have fallen in love with the beauty of the ocean, these mysteries serve as a stimulant, pushing humanity to venture further and conquer new heights. This video concludes Dark Origin's journey into uncovering the truth behind the ghosts of the deep. We hope you've had a wonderful experience, and please don't forget to return and support the channel in upcoming videos. For now, goodbye and see you again.